Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we're in a new section, the two powers veiling and agitating or projecting. So we're on verse 143, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
All right. Ganesh, will you help us out, please? I think you're muted.
Kavalita Dinanathe Durdina Sandrameghaih Vyarthayati Himajhangha Vayu Rugro Yathaitan Aviratatam Aviratama Satmanyavrate Muda Buddhim Shapayati Bahudukkhaihi Tibra Vikshepa Shaktihi. Just as on a cloudy day, when the sun is followed up by dense clouds, cold shivering blasts persecute man, so too when the Atman is screened off by utter ignorance, the dreadful projecting power, Vikshepa Shakti, persecutes the foolish man with endless sorrows.
So we're dealing with this process that Shankara puts forward of how we get into trouble. The first thing that happens is what we call veiling power, avritti, sometimes also called avarana shakti. It is the non-apprehension of my essential nature. Even though I am, I know, I shine, I am Satchidananda, existence, consciousness, and bliss absolute. Because of this spiritual ignorance, in the subtle intellect. That's where it happens. I do not know it. I go to sleep to that. This non-apprehension of my essential nature. It's a spiritual deep sleep. Then there is the subsequent agitating or projecting power called Vikshepa Shakti. Vikshepa, the root is kshipati, which means to throw, like to hurl a spear. So it not only means that we project a world of name and form, it also means that I take it as real. And it means that I'm emotionally attached, engaged, worried about it all. So that's the afflicting power. So when the clouds come, we have an overcast sky. Today it was bright and sunny. Tomorrow it's supposed to be cloudy all day. So you look up in the sky, you go, oh, it's overcast, no sun today. Well, how do you know that the sky is overcast? It is by virtue of the light of the sun that I'm able to see the clouds that are obscuring the sun. So also, are you enlightened? No. Do you know your self-nature? No. Are you a miserable creature? Yes. Do you know you're in ignorance and miserable? Yes, I know it. I know, I shine, I cognize, I am. All of that is thundering. But in my ignorance, I do not know him. And then, just like when the weather's cold, the wind comes up and you shiver because it's so cold. So also the projecting power of the mind starts to torment us, to tyrannize us. I want. It's not right. They're not doing it my way. I need this. I'm not getting my needs met. All that stuff that the mind starts to project. And it seems so real. But remember, at night, we also have a Varana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. At night, I go to sleep. That's the non-apprehension of myself as the waker. Then Vikshepa Shakti, I project the dream state with a dream body and a dream ego identified with it. And I go through all the anxiety and the torment of the dream. And to the dreamer, the dream seems as real as the waking state world seems to us right now. So we can say self-realization is waking up from being awake. So keep in mind these two powers, veiling power, Varana Shakti or Vritti, projecting power, Vikshepa Shakti. Any questions about these two powers of the mind? Next verse.
एताभ्यमेव शक्तिभ्यां बन्धः पुंसः समागतः याभ्यां विमोहितो देहं मत्वात्मानं ब्रह्मत्ययम्. Man's bondage has sprung forth from these two powers. Deluded by them, he mistakes his body for the self and wanders from life to life.
So this is my problem. In my mind, I fall asleep to my self nature. I do not know that I am the birthless, changeless Brahman. Listen very carefully. You don't turn into Brahman. You don't attain Brahman. You don't achieve Brahman. Brahman is not an experience that you're going to have that you don't have right now. You realize what you've always been. I just was ignorant of it. I was just ignorant of it. Once I've fallen asleep to my essential nature, Avarana Shakti, then Vikshepa Shakti, the mind identifies with the body. I think I'm my body. From that identification and the subsequent attachments stem the entire cycle of rebirth. The karma chakra, the wheel of karma, samsara. Don't have to believe in reincarnation. It's like the person who lives in Chicago and they drink too much, they get fired from their job, their credit cards are way over the limit, they've alienated all their friends, and they think, oh, the problem is Chicago, I'm going to move to LA and start over. Move to LA and they make a few friends, they get a job, but they continue the same behavior. And in time, they've recreated it all over again. So we can look at the whole teaching around reincarnation as simply what we as fools do in one lifetime. So if you have a problem with a boss, tell me it's the first time you've had this feeling. If you had an unfortunate love affair that broke up, tell me this is the first time it's happened. And we see that we repeat the same foolishness over and over and over again. And the root of it, Avarana Shakti, I do not know who I am. Vikshepa Shakti, then I think I'm a person. I'm my body, or my body plus the personality. I'm all caught up in defending and protecting. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Bijam samsriti bhumijasya tutamo dehatmadhirankuro raga palalabambum karmatu papuhu skandho savashakhikaah अग्राणीन्द्रिय संहितश्च विषयाः पुष्पाणि दुःखं फलं नानाकर्मसमुद्भवं बहुविधं भोक्तात्र जीवः खगः. Ignorance is the seed for the tree of samsara. Body identification is the sprout. Desires are its tender leaves. Work is its water. The body is its trunk, The pranas are its branches. The sense organs are its twigs. The sense objects are its flowers. Different miseries born out of the varieties of actions are the fruits, and the individual jiva is the bird perched upon it.
So this is a metaphor actually taken from the Upanishads. So we have this tree of life, as is explained here. So the first thing that happens is ignorance. And then he goes through step by step, comparing the human condition and ignorance to this tree. And then we have the little Tweety bird that sits on the branches, the ego sense, which in truth is independent of all that equipment. It's a beautiful poetic metaphor to describe the human condition. Next one.
Sorry, Jim, could you say, this is David, could you say more about the independence of the Jiva bird?
Sure. Actually, the jiva is not really an entity. The jiva is a kind of thinking, but it's a function within the subtle intellect whereby I attribute to the self the qualities of the not self. So it gives me the sense that there's an individual person. So, for example, it's the same me that had soup for dinner tonight that's teaching class tonight. There's a continuity of memory and experience. Each of us has that. But the reason the Tweety bird is independent is because the idea there's something that can move, as it were, that bird can go from one tree to another. Meaning, in this life, when we reach 80, 90 years of age, and that tree is all beat up, can't really even bear fruit anymore, and it dies. The Tweety bird, fly, 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 goes to another tree. Meaning another body, more sense organs, more desires, more attachments, etc. But the seed of it all, that's his point, is ignorance, the bija, which starts it. Was that useful?
Yes, thank you.
All right, next one.
Ajnana mulo janatmabandho naisargiko nadi anantairitiha janmapyaya abhyayadhi charadi dukkha pravahapatam janayatyumashya. This bondage caused by the not self springs from ignorance and is self-caused. It is described as without beginning and without end. It subjects one to the endless flood of miseries, birth, death, disease, and senility.
Does it say it is without beginning and without end?
It is described as without beginning and without end.
Interesting. Okay, so he's talking about the whole sense of Maya, this universal power of the Lord that is beginningless and endless. on an individual basis, our ignorance is beginningless but has an end. But just because you or I gain knowledge of the self, it doesn't mean the universe stops. So this Maya is the inherent power of the infinite by which all beings are born deluded. Those of us from a Christian background, there's an idea that comes up. You don't hear about it in a lot of the Protestant sects, but in Catholicism and Methodists and Anglican/Episcopalians, it's called original sin. And there's the mythology of Adam and Eve and the eating of the apple and all that bit, but that's not about a historical experience. Original sin merely is the Christian mythology to talk about this idea of Maya, of ignorance. We don't know why or where it came from. We can't explain it, but we're born into a state of spiritual ignorance. It is possible to get out of it, but it keeps on. That's Maya is the inherent power of the infinite, and it is beginningless and endless from that sense. But we as individuals can free ourselves from it. We can cross the ocean of change. Next verse.
नास्त्रैर्न शास्त्रै अनिलेन वह्निना चेतुं न शक्यो न च कर्मकोटिभिः विवेकविज्ञानमहासिना विना धातुः प्रसादेन सितेन मञ्जुना neither by weapons nor by wind.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the beginning of the sentence. Say it again.
Neither by weapons nor by wind, nor by fire, nor by millions of actions can this bondage be destroyed. By nothing save the wonder sword of knowledge, which comes from discrimination, but is sharpened by the purification of the mind and the intellect, can we end this bondage.
Yes. So again, this poetry borrowed from the Upanishads, weapons cleave it not, fire burns it not, etc. The idea that he's getting here is it's not some heroic action that we're going to undertake. It's not huffing and puffing with pranayama. It's not sacred baths. It's not fasting. It's achieved by discrimination between the self and the not self, which can only be accomplished in a very subtle mind. So we do engage in practices in order to achieve a subtle mind, to sharpen that wonder sword. What are the practices that Shankara suggests? We go all the way back. Qualifications of a fit student. Who remembers what the first two are? What's the first one?
Viveka.
And what's the definition of Viveka?
discrimination between the real and the unreal.
Yes. And how does Shankara say it? He says, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman, the ground of being alone, is real, is true. Jagat, the phenomenal world, is Mithya. I had one student share with me a definition of it as a conditioned reality. The names and forms. The word actually means illusion. Nitya, anitya, vivechana. The discrimination between the eternal and the non-eternal, the real and the unreal, the subject and all the objects, the self and the not self. Viveka. Real discrimination matures in what we call, what's the second one? Who remembers it?
Vairagya.
And what does vairagya mean? Dispassion or detachment. And the way Shankara defines it is that desire, we don't achieve it overnight, to give up all attachments to enjoyments gained through any of the senses. How? Through discrimination, understanding how temporary they are. And that desire to give up all identification with any form of self, from the body up to including Brahma, the creator, meaning I'm a really powerful, important person. We always want to nail it down, control, define. Let it all go. Let it all. So our Viveka builds our Vairagya. This is how we sharpen that wonder sword. If any of you see any of the Tibetan iconography, you'll see pictures of a Tibetan bodhisattva named Manjushri. And he's always got this sword above his head, the wonder sword of knowledge, to discriminate between the real and the unreal, the true and the false. Any questions about this verse? It's beautiful poetry. Next verse.
Shruti Pramane Kamate Swadharma Nishtha Tayevatma Vishuddhirasya Vishuddha Buddhe Paramatma Vedanam Tenaiva Samsara Samulanashaha. He who has deep devotion to the Shrutis and who is established in his Swadharma, for these alone contribute to the purity of his mind, and is of pure mind, realizes the Supreme Self.
So we have this I'm sorry, go ahead.
By this knowledge alone is samsara destroyed, root and branch.
Yes. So a deep devotion to the Shruti, to the scriptures. Here we mean the Upanishads, and we mean not, oh, this is a sacred book. but to the insight, the philosophy, and the yogic practices that are suggested in them. One of the things you can say about this particular text, it's the cream of all of the teaching of the Upanishads. So he says devotion to Shruti. What's the second one, Ganesh?
Was established in his Swadharma.
That's right, established in his Swadharma, meaning you're living an intelligent way of life. If you're fighting your proclivities, if you're living a life that is against right action, that hurts or harms other people, that's unjust or unethical, you're going to find it difficult to do yoga. So you want to be able to put that part of your life kind of on automatic pilot by being established in an intelligent way of living. We're actually going to start talking about that on Sunday nights in Gita. This Sunday, we're going to take up chapter 3 on karma yoga, how to act in the world in a way that's conducive to our liberation. So here, Shankara is saying this devotion to the Vedanta, that's what he's talking about. The knowledge that's found in the Upanishads, the concluding portions of the Vedas, and then living a proper life. This is preparatory. Then we engage in this intense self-inquiry. So it will be very difficult to progress if you're out there living an extroverted life of drug, sex, and rock and roll. What I tend to tell people is go out and party hardy. Don't try to do both. Go out, explore the world, wring what you want out of it, let it kick you in the teeth, let it disappoint you over and over again. Then your mind will develop some mature dispassion. You can come and do yoga without being distracted by a lot of desires. A lot of desires. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
Koshaihi annam yadhyaihi panchabhiratma na samrito bhati nija shakti samutpannaihi shaivala patalaihi rivambu vapistham, covered by the 5 sheets, such as the food sheet, which are produced by its own divine power. The self ceases to appear, just as the water in a tank ceases to appear due to the collection of moss, which is born out of itself. Water.
So this is an image taken from Kerala, from South India. So in the villages in South India, even today, where they don't have running water, the women come down to the tank, they call it, which is usually a dammed up part of a river. It's usually done in stone, and it's usually at 3 different levels. The potable water is on the first one, and then I can't forget, anyway, it's on 3 different levels. So we're talking about the top one, which is where you get the potable water. And algae grows in them. So the women come down to the tank in the morning, they set their jars down, and then they splash the moss away. And then they dip the big jars in for getting drinking water, so it's potable. Then after a while, the moss comes back. And Kerala is so verdant, it's so green, that if you're coming towards one of these tanks from a distance, you can't really see the green grass and jungly stuff and the tank, and it all looks the same. You don't realize there's this great big huge reservoir of water there. It's very interesting. So anyway, that's the image that Shankara is talking about. So he says that the self appears to be covered. Now notice the water's there. Water is not absent in the tank. It's just veiled from our view. So also, the nature of the self is covered. It's veiled by the Panchakosha, the 5 sheaths. And so now we're going to start one of the most famous sections of Viveka Chudamani. He's going to go in depth into these 5 sheaths. Sheaths here means a covering. I like to use the metaphor, it's like these little Russian nesting dolls. So there's one doll and you open it up and there's another doll inside, and you open that up and there's another doll inside. So there are 5 of these. Now, understand, we had a map of the human equipment earlier on where we had 3 bodies: gross body, subtle body, causal body. Now we're going to get another map of the human being with 5 elements. Are there 3 bodies or are there 5? These are just different ways of breaking it down. There are actually some schools who say there's 7. Don't get caught up in all that. This is one of the classic maps of what a human being is. Why are we studying them? Because if you can clearly see what you are not, it becomes easier to disidentify with it. For example, do you all see the glass over here? It's a red glass. It's a red glass with a bunch of little squares on it. It's quite distant from you. Is it clear to you that you're not a glass? You're the person looking at the glass. You are not a glass. So that's the kind of process that we're going to engage in our discussion of the 5 koshas, the 5 sheaths. Next verse.
Tachai valapanaye samyak salilam pratiyate shuddham trishna santapaharam sadhyah saukhya-pradam param pumsah. When the moss is removed, absolutely pure water, which can quench the pangs of thirst and give immediate joy, becomes visible.
So the metaphor that he's saying is just like when you remove the moss, the clear water becomes evident. We're going to remove the 5 sheaths. Doesn't mean you have to kill yourself. Means we withdraw our identification, our attention from them. Let me see if I can give a very worldly example. I don't know if you were this way as a teenager, or you had friends that were, or maybe you know kids who are identified with a particular clique or group. Let's say goth. Everybody has, black eyeliner and color their hair outrageous colors and maybe wear leather and stuff like that. And that's who they are. I'm goth. God forbid they have to wear a sweater and a pair of slacks. That's not me. People are so identified with a covering. People get identified with a sheath. Could be their clothing. Or someone who loses a job, go to pieces because they were identified with the job. Or in this current environment, small business owners worked hard for 2-3 decades. And all of a sudden they lose a restaurant. And if their identity is wrapped up with the restaurant, then they're shaken. So these are just even more gross forms of being externally identified. So what we want to do is get rid of anything that is get-riddable and see what's left over, see what remains. Next verse.
Panchanaamapi koshanam apavade vibhatyayam shuddhah nityanandaikarasah pratyagrupah parah swayam jyotihi. When all 5 sheets have been negated, the self is apprehended as being the essence of everlasting bliss, as the indwelling, self-effulgent Spirit Supreme.
So I'm not any of these equipments. I'm Nityananda, eternal bliss. Self-effulgent. That's who I am. That's what I am. Not just as an idea, but as a direct experience. I like to use the metaphor, if you have 3 glasses of water, and each one has food coloring in it, red, blue, and yellow. You do not know the color of pure water. What do? You remove everything that is not water. You have to get it all out. Can't use your Brita water filter. You've got to use your zero water filter. And then you see, oh, there's just clear water. It has no color. So right now, I think I'm good, I'm bad, I'm successful, I'm a failure, I'm smart, I'm slow, I'm old, I'm young. All these various identifications. These, in fact, are qualities of the koshas, of the not self. Next verse.
Atmanatma vivekah kartabhyo bandhamuktaye vidusha tena ivanandi bhavati swam vijnaya sanchidanandam. The wise man should discriminate between the self and the not self in order to remove the bondage. Only then does he know his own self to be absolute existence, knowledge, bliss. Only then does he become happy.
Yes. So that's how we realize who we are. We engage in this discrimination between the self and the not self. Atma, Anatma, Vivechanam. By means of discrimination between the self and the not self. It's like a game. And these are the rules. If it has a beginning and an end, if it occurs in time and space, if it has form, if it has qualities, if it has characteristics, if it's in the waking, dream, or deep sleep state exclusively. And most importantly, if it can be objectively apprehended, that's not it. I had a student say, "Oh, I think I'm getting close to it, Jim. My crown chakra was buzzing. I can feel it start to open." Really? When did this happen? Oh, I was in meditation. And what were you doing before that? Oh, I was just hanging out in the kitchen and stuff like that. Who knew that you were hanging out in the kitchen? I did. And when your head started to buzz, who knew that? I did. Who's talking with me right now? I am. Drop it. The buzzing in your head had a beginning and an end. It occurred as an objective experience. Buzzy head is not the knower, it is the thing known. Drop it. We have to be willing to let go of everything that is not self. Next verse.
Munjadishi kama iva drishavargat pratyanchamatmanam sangamakriyam vivichya tatra pravilapya sarvam tadatmana tisthati ya samuktaha. He who separates all sense objects, perceived, felt, and thought of, from the subjective, unattached, actionless self, like the enveloping sheets separated from the core of the munja grass. He is free, for having merged everything with it, he remains ever identified with it.
Yes. So munja grass has it's like a leek, or it's like lemongrass. You know, it has layers. In our modern kind of new agey thing, you always hear about peeling the onion, layer upon layer upon layer. So we start by separating ourselves from anything that is knowable. And then we are now going to go through these 5 sheets and examine them thoroughly. so we can see clearly what we are not. One of the most frequent questions / comments I get, someone will say, "Oh, Jim, in my meditation, I think I had an experience of the self." And the very frame betrays stuff. Did you see it? Did you feel it? Did it have a beginning and an end? Was it an experience of some sort? People, even if they have a deep experience of something, can get incredibly attached. I was talking with a former student, and in 1995, he had this experience of very deep and profound emptiness. And he keeps wanting to get back there. And that's not it. We want to realize the eternal fact. And by eternal, we mean it's always happening. When are you ever not you? My only doubt is, what's the nature of me? That's what we're going to start to explore, to really investigate. Next one.
Dehoyamanna bhavanon mayastu kosha channena jivati vinashyati tadvihinaha tvakcharma mamsa rudhirasthi purisha rashihi nayam swayam bhavati bhavitumarhati nityashuddha. The body is a product of food. It constitutes the food sheet. It exists because of food and dies without it. It is a bundle of skin, flesh, blood, bones, and filth. Never can it be the self-existing, the eternally pure Atman.
So the first sheet that we're going to discuss is what we call the Annamaya Kosha. Annam in Sanskrit means cooked rice. So it's a food tube. That's what the body is. Skin, bone, flesh, muscle, sinew, phlegm, filled with feces and urine. What does it do? Why do we call it the Annamaya Kosha? The food, Maya here with a short A means comprised of. Annamaya means comprised of food. Because what it does, it consumes a mountain of food and produces a mountain of poop. And in the end, food for worms. That is your body. It's a tube. From the time you're born, you munch your way to the grave. Sometimes fatter, sometimes thinner, sometimes healthier, sometimes sicker. Some of us older, some of us younger. But that's what the body is. It's the food tube. Chomp, 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 chomp. That's your body. It's not yourself. When you were a child, you had a little body. In adolescence, your body changed. Now you're an adult, your body has changed again. Some of us are, in our, what do they call it, euphemistically, golden years. We're decrepit. Body is changed again. But I have been the witness of the changes in the body. I know the changes in the body. I know when it's healthy. I know when it's sick. I know when it gets more wrinkles. I know when I've been working out. All these changes. I know the body like I know a pot. It's an object of cognition. Next verse.
Purvam janeradi vriterapi nayamasti jata kshana shanaguno niyatasvabhavaha naiko jadascha घटवत् परिदृश्यमानः स्वात्मा कथं भवति भावविकारवेत्ता. Before its birth, it does not exist, nor does it continue to be after its death. It lasts only for a short period. Its qualities are fleeting and by nature subject to change. It is diversified and inert and like a jar, is a sense object. How then can it be the self, the witness of all changes in all things?
Yes. So it's born and it dies. And I tell you, young people, one of the things as you get north of 70, you look back and you go, my God, it's almost over. Whole life. It's like you blinked your eyes and it's almost over. It's really quite short. And always an object of awareness. How can it be the self, which the scriptures say is birthless and changeless and deathless, an eternal factor? It is anatman, not self. Okay, one more.
Panipadadi mandeho na atma vyange api jivanat tattachakte anashcha ana anashcha tattachakte anashacha na niyamyo niyamakaha. The body, which is made of arms, legs, etc., cannot be the Atman. For even if these organs are amputated or removed, it continues to function efficiently. It is thus subject to the rule of another and cannot be the Atman, the ruler of all.
So he's implying what I like to call the amputation meditation. Where are you? What part of your body is essentially you? If you get your legs cut off, are you still you? Your hands? Where are you located? A lot of people think they're like in their head because so many of our senses are there. Was it the Far Side where they had the head of like Richard Nixon in a jar? That sort of thing. Is that what you were like? Actually, you are not in the body. The body is in you. Let me explain what I mean by that. Do you incarnate into a dream? It sure feels like I'm in my dream body. But are you in the dream body, or is the dream body in you? That sense of being located in the body is a trick of the mind. You are not your body, and you are not in your body. Ganesh, how many more shlokas on the Maya Kosha?
It's quite a few, Jim.
All right, we'll stop here then, and we'll finish up the Annamaya Kosha probably next week. All right, any questions or comments on any of the stuff we covered tonight? Are you all clear on how to practice subject-object discrimination? You not only do it in your meditation seat, but you want to be doing it out there in the world. Any
This whole
questions?
section, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This whole section reminds me of something Nisargadatta Maharaj said again. It's very interesting. Yeah.
And what was that?
To take appearance as reality is a grievous sin and the cause of all calamities. You are the all-pervading, eternal, and infinitely creative awareness consciousness. Everything else is local and temporary. Don't forget what you are. In your meantime, work your heart's content. Work and knowledge should go hand in hand.
Sounds good to me. Very applicable. It's exactly what he's talking about. Anyone else with a question or a comment on how to do the practice? Now, body identification we call the bijavasana. It's the seed, the root attachment. I always think of what Ram Dass said when he had his massive stroke. And he said when he was on the gurney being wheeled out of his house to the ambulance, there wasn't a spiritual bone in his body. It's very difficult to discriminate that I am not the body when it's freaking out. This is one of the reasons why it behooves us to stay healthy. You want to stay healthy so you can forget your body. Forget your attachment to it, your identification with it. Now, many yogis at the time of great calamity, at the time of death, are not re-identified. Doesn't have to happen. Any thoughts, any comments, any questions about the practice?
Yeah, Jim, this is David. I'm not real clear on what I should be doing outside of the meditation seat. And from the time that I get up until the point I sit in that seat, and then from the time I sit in that seat to the time I get to bed, there's a lot of doing, and there's a lot of chasing after people, and every once in a while I'll get a glimmer of, okay, sit back, take a breath, like kind of let go of whatever thoughts and anxieties I have going on at that moment. Other than those moments, it's the constant churning of cause and effect, right?
I understand that. And what the challenge is to continue to remind yourself, I'm the witnessing consciousness. I am not the activity. And there's no person, David. It's just reactivity in the mind and the intellect that I witness. I am not upset, it's the mind that's upset. I am not happy, it's the mind that's happy. Keep in your mind, keep trying to make that discrimination. Separate out the self from the not self. You don't necessarily have to do anything, you just have to notice. Does that make it a little clearer?
That's clear. Yes, I do have, I guess, one follow-up item, and that is I guess I have this concern that I will be, if I have my attention in my intellect going to discrimination, then I guess, how do I get anything done?
Why don't you try it and see if it inhibits your activity?
That's fair.
Experiment. Swamiji always suggested, be a spiritual scientist. Prove or disprove this stuff in the laboratory of your own experience. My experience, when I live in Sakshi Baba, the attitude of the witness, I'm far more efficient because I'm not busy reacting and defending and protecting and justifying, which is what ego identification gets caught up in. The perpetual look good, need to feel important. And when that arises, just notice it. Just notice it. And it will start to shift. Very good question. Any other questions or comments?
Jim, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, this is Vladimir. I'm gonna build on this a little bit. So with the ego in play, ego makes the kind of decisions, wants this, doesn't want that, and kind of pushes us through the day. In a state where we can really detach from the ego completely, so it doesn't control us anymore, how is it fair to say that the conscience at that point makes the decisions, or is still happening some other way because conscience just always observes, maybe doesn't make decisions?
Consciousness has no sense of agency. Decisions are a function of the mind.
So is discrimination and Vairagya, Viveka?
Let me
Viveka
finish
and
with
Vairagya.
Vladimir.
Oh, sorry.
Justin. Did that make sense, Vladimir?
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying. And maybe you're telling me many of these decisions are really not important. At some point, yeah, the mind makes them. You have to make decisions as you go about your day, but just don't get them to get you at all.
Just notice who or what's making the decision. Am I making the decision, or is the desire for decision and will arising in the mind? Notice it. I'm not the doer. I'm the witness. I'm not the doer. I'm not the experiencer. I'm not the agent.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm witnessing consciousness, which has no qualities, which is sthita, always still. It is kutusta, is like an anvil or a mountain. Everything changes on it, but it does nothing. Now, you find out whether or not that's true. You find out whether or not will is an attribute of yourself or will is an attribute of your mind. Don't believe me. You find out.
Okay. Working on it.
Yeah.
It just, it, at least to me, it's interesting to have maybe slight understanding of how it looks like at the full enlightenment, and when you have no vasanas, you're completely free of that. Sounds like the body that keeps going still needs to make some decisions, right? Another trivial ones.
Well, and some of them may be important, but agency is not a function of the self.
Yeah, it makes me think that the self would just be fine not making a decision at all, just so keeps
It's neither
observing.
fine nor not fine. It doesn't decide to be fine. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can use a much more mundane example. I, at the level of my body, am sitting in this chair. Is the chair deciding to hold me?
No.
Is the chair deciding that I'm going to sit cross-legged?
No again.
Is the chair, did it choose to be leather?
No.
What's the chair doing?
What kind of we want to put it to good use?
What is the chair doing? Is it wanting anything? Is it choosing anything?
Yeah, no, it's very
It's just
passive.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm doing all this stuff. The chair is just there. Your body, mind, intellect, your 5 koshas are doing all the doing.
Sure.
You're just there as the container, as the context. But the body, mind, intellect, the 5 koshas, they are not sentient. Only you are sentient.
If you don't mind, maybe what is sentient? What does that mean?
Aware, alive.
Aware. Got it.
All right, Justin, real quick, what was your thought?
No, because you said you were talking about decisions and stuff like that. So, so Viveka and Vairagya are not qualities of the Atman either, even though
That's
they are
correct.
necessary. Even though they are necessary in order to find it.
Who is discriminating and who is detaching?
Yeah. Yeah. It just sounds okay. Okay.
It is the mind that does the yoga.
The discrimination. Okay.
All of yoga is done by the equipment, not
By
by
the equipment. Okay. Thank you. That was clarifying.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? And now we'll sit.